You're cute.
Okay, I'll take this chair then. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Plant Paws, where we hang out and talk about all things plants and cats. I've got Sushi with me here, and we're going to be doing another episode of Purrfect Plant Showcase today. Welcome to my second episode of Purrfect Plant Showcase. My name is Megan. If you're new here, thanks for joining me today. Last week was my very first episode in this series, and I showcased my Philodendron glorious. So if you're interested, I'll link it in the description box and you can check that out. But this week we're going to do a whole new plant, and it's one that I know is very popular, so I thought it would be perfect to do. I did a lot of research on this plant and found out quite a bit that I didn't even know myself, so I wanted to share that with you guys today. So get cozy, grab your coffee, because apparently we're doing a fall theme today. I'm going to be sharing with you guys what I found out through my research, but also just my care with this plant in my household. So hopefully it'll be able to help you guys have an idea of whether you want this plant or not, or if you already have it, maybe it'll give you some more insight about it. Without any further ado, we are going to be talking about none other than the Monstera Thai Constellation. Look how pretty those leaves are. Oh my gosh. Just want to give you guys a nice close-up because I just really appreciate the variegation on this plant. All the leaves are different too. This is the newest one it just put out with its first fenestration. And it's actually working on a new leaf as well. You can see that. All right, you guys, let's get into the origin of this plant. So the Monstera Thai Constellation actually descends from a single tissue culture in a laboratory based in Thailand, hence the name Thai in the name Thai Constellation. The mother plant of this is actually the well-known Monstera deliciosa. The Monstera Thai Constellation is considered more of a high dollar plant. So as you have probably seen or heard of, these plants do cost a little bit more money than the typical plant. And that's because it is rare, it is harder to get a hold of, and it comes from a singular location, so that makes it really valuable. So depending on how much your budget is, or if you're able to snag one for a decent price, and if you're a huge plant lover like I am, I say that it's worth it. Just like the variegation on this is just so pretty. Like, look at that. I love it so much. It's just so pretty. Anyway, a fun fact about the Thai Constellation that I thought was really freaking cool. The variegation on this plant is stable. So no matter how much you propagate it, it's here to stay. Like, you don't have to worry about this reverting on you, which is amazing. I think it's worth it because the variegation is not going to go away on you. It's not going to revert, which personally, I feel like that kind of takes the fun out of like other variegated plants. Is you end up paying a little bit extra for a variegated plant, but then you have the risk of it reverting. I just personally have a hard time justifying paying the extra money with the risk of it reverting. So this one to me was worth it. I don't really have a lot of high dollar plants in my collection, but this one probably is the most valuable one I have. But with that being said, unlike its relative, the Monstera albo, that one can revert. The variegation on that one is not stable. So it's just something to consider if maybe you are considering getting either or. I went with this one personally at the beginning because of the fact that the variegation is going to be stable. So I just thought that was a really cool fact about this plant that kind of makes it a little bit more unique in my opinion. Okay, next I wanted to talk about the characteristics of the Monstera Thai Constellation. I know that sometimes this can be a little bit harder to tell the difference between this one and the Monstera albo. They are very similar, but the Thai Constellation always has like more of a speckled and flecked variegation to it, and it's always more of a creamy color, more kind of yellow actually. If you guys can see in the camera here what the variegation color looks like. It's a little bit different throughout the whole leaf, but they're typically more creamy colored. I've actually got a Monstera albo next to me that I'll grab so you guys can see what the difference in variegation looks like. So this is the Thai Constellation leaf, and then this is a Monstera elbow leaf. So as you can see, the variegation in the elbow is a little bit more white colored than the Thai Constellation. And the Thai Constellation leaf has more of a creamy, more yellow hue to it. And you can see how the speckled pattern is more present in the Thai Constellation as opposed to the elbow. So I just thought that was kind of cool to see them next to each other so you guys can see the difference. But that is a cutting that I just acquired actually last week at a cutting event, and I got it for a really good deal. So I'll probably be potting that one up here soon. One thing to know about the beautiful variegation in the Thai Constellation is that the creamy colored variegation in these leaves actually comes from a mutation in the chlorophyll. And so the white parts of the leaves do not absorb light, which means that these plants actually have to work a little bit harder to photosynthesize, which actually brings me to its care. So as for light for the Thai Constellation, bright indirect light is recommended, but like I said, the variegation cannot photosynthesize due to the lack of chlorophyll, so it does have to work quite a bit harder to photosynthesize and harvest energy from light. So I recommend giving this plant a little bit more light. Probably more light the better. But as with most plants, try to avoid direct sunlight to avoid sunburn. And as for watering, which I just watered this one yesterday, so it is all hydrated and happy. Icons are known to have sensitive aerial roots, so they can be a little bit more susceptible to root rot, even more so than the Monstera deliciosa. It is recommended that you check the top few inches of the soil and make sure that is dry before you water it again. I would say probably just to be safe, maybe wait until 3/4 of the pot is dry and then water it again. For me, I know I like to usually let my plants dry out most of the way before I water again. And it's been okay for me for this plant. But I know some Thai cons are more sensitive than others. Some people have had more easy times with their Thai cons, while others have had more issues with root rot. So I think it really just depends on the plant you have itself. But for me, I let this dry out pretty much most of the way before I water it again. But like I said, root rot is a thing that these are susceptible to, so just keep that in mind when watering. So err on the side of less watering than overwatering. I have to show you really quick because I'm sitting here in front of my window filming, and while I'm filming there's a bunch of birds out there. Don't mind my pot sitting out there, but the kittens are going crazy. They're so cute. And then moving on to fertilizer, Thai constellations are known to be pretty slow growers, so it's recommended to use a balanced fertilizer and dilute it to probably half the strength than you normally would, just because they are pretty sensitive. And if you can, try to avoid a fertilizer that is higher in salts. It is very sensitive to high salt. And then of course, try to only fertilize during the growing season, at least once a month, and then avoid fertilizing during the winter season or the dormant seasons. And then for soil for the Thai constellation, they require a very well-draining soil mix that has lots of organic matter if you can. Why are you doing burnouts? And then as far as soil for the Thai constellation, try to use something that is very well draining and add lots of organic material if you can. So I would recommend a soil mix with bark, pumice, perlite, cocoa chips, tree fern fiber, wood chips, anything like that. It loves to cling to that organic material. And then for humidity for this plant, it is a tropical plant, so it would prefer higher humidity, so something usually above 60% is recommended. My Thai constellation lives in my plant room, which is usually around 50 to 60%, and it seems pretty happy in there. I haven't had any issues with any brown tips or anything like that, but that is something that can happen if you have too low of humidity. If you see brown tips on the edges of the leaves, that's usually a sign of the air being too dry. And if you can, try to keep the humidity from getting below 50%. Some ways to raise humidity in your house is to use a pebble tray with water in it and put that under the pot. You can group plants together that are all humidity loving. That helps raise the humidity in its area. And then you can also just use a humidifier, which is kind of a safe way to go. Next, moving on to temperature for the Thai Constellation. It is recommended for this plant to be in an environment between 65 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and try to avoid it going below that 65. It does not do well in cold environments. Like I said before, this plant is a little more sensitive, and try to avoid drafty areas too. So try not to put this next to a window or a door that gets opened and closed all the time. These do prefer to be kept in warmer conditions. And then moving on to common issues with the Monstera Thai Constellation. One of those issues is brown leaves, and that usually means that you're not giving it enough water, or you're going too long in between waterings, which then causes the browning on the leaves. Or your watering is too inconsistent. Another common issue with this one is root rot, like I mentioned before. They do have sensitive roots, so they are more prone to getting root rot, and that's usually caused by overwatering or having too dense of soil. And then the next common issue is yellowing leaves. Yellow leaves are usually caused by either a lack of nutrients or too little or too much water. And then for toxicity, this plant is known to be toxic to both humans and pets if ingested, and the sap is known to cause some minor skin irritation. So if you're handling any fresh cuttings or anything like that, make sure to wear gloves. And then as for propagating the Monstera Thai Constellation, which I have not done yet in my experience, but from the research I did, it's recommended to use a mature cutting with nodes. And then because it is more sensitive and prone to root rot, it's recommended to avoid putting it in just straight soil. I have read that the best option to propagate this plant is to use a mixture of sphagnum moss, chunky perlite, and or leca. And then of course it's always recommended to use a couple drops of Super Thrive just to help the plant root up. And if you can, increase the humidity for the cutting, maybe keep it covered so it can have a better chance of rooting up. That is all I have for you guys as far as care goes with this plant, but I did want to give you one last tip. If you don't already have this plant and you're considering purchasing one thing that I wanted to say is when buying a variegated Monstera, try to avoid the leaves that have too much variegation in them. So although super gorgeous, the variegated leaves that have like half moon leaves where you see half the leaf is like all white, those ones are super pretty, but they can be more challenging. If it has more variegation like that, it means that they have more mutations, which in turn can make the plant weaker because of the lack of chlorophyll. That was just something that I was concerned about because I have seen leaves with variegation on them where they just turn brown and get crispy. So that is something that I wanted to avoid personally with my plant. So I just wanted to pass that on to you guys. And that is all I got for you guys today. I hope that you learned something along with me about the Monstera Thai Constellation. Let me know if there's any plants that you guys would like for me to highlight in next week's Purrfect Plant Showcase. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new about the Monstera Thai Constellation. Hopefully you'll want to go out and buy one now because look at those leaves. How could you not? Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. If you liked it, please let me know below and hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!